that heads north out of Edinburgh and up into the Highlands. Now, there is a way in which you can enjoy the Scottish spectacular in some style and luxury, and with a slight touch of nostalgia thrown in as well. Just the ticket, we thought, for our commuter, John Carter.
If your experience of travel by train is confined to the sardine state of commuting, or sitting on your case in the corridor of a speeding intercity, if travel by train brings to your mind pre-packed sandwiches and tea in a plastic beaker, perhaps you'd better watch closely for the next few minutes, because this is travel by train in a completely different league, a completely different world even. This is the Royal Scotsman, the showpiece of the great Scottish and Western Railway Company. Carriages restored to their full Victorian and Edwardian glory, so that travellers of today can experience the splendid style of yesterday. The observation car, for example, was built in 1892. Then it was a dining saloon. Now you sit in it to see where you're coming from. But surely the more important question is, where are you going to? The Bridge of Orkney, a station lying on the route to Rannoch Moor and Fort William. It's reached on the second day of the journey, which begins at Edinburgh's Waverley Station and lasts 3 or 6 days, depending on your enthusiasm for this type of travel and how much you're prepared to pay to indulge that enthusiasm. You'll not spend all your time on board the train. When the Scotsman pauses in her royal progress, a luxury coach is on hand to take passengers to places of interest away from the trackside. These excursions are included in the basic price of the holidays, which is just as it should be, for those prices are steep, a minimum of £950 for 3 days. But the high quality of what you get for that money is reflected in every ingredient, every aspect of the holiday. Whether you're travelling by rail or road, you're in a first-class seat all the way. One of the excursions on that second day is to Achnacarry, the home of clan chieftain Sir Donald Cameron of Lochiel. Built in the early 1800s, it's closed to the public, but one advantage of being a Royal Scotsman passenger is that you're an exception to that rule.
The clan and the arms.
His own personal banner, you know.
So,
Yes.
so I think in we go. Shall we
Yes,
go?
by all means,
Lovely, it
help
seems
yourself.
a shame and such a lovely evening.
I know, it's
Right,
not
right,
often it's
come
like this.
So step inside to inspect the house, the family treasures, and the centuries of history that lie behind them. The North Americans in our group were immensely impressed. On this first part of her journey, the Royal Scotsman's not in any kind of rush and meanders among the glens and lochs of western Scotland. It's an easy journey that's brought us here to the Bridge of Orkney. Brought us in considerable comfort, I must say, to the heart of a stark and uncompromising landscape. A landscape which, in its own grand way, is as much of an attraction as the Royal Scotsman herself, and one which provided an unexpected bonus. I never did discover what Highland herb was being gathered by our chefs, but they said it would be used in our meal that evening. Your thoroughgoing 100% railway enthusiast will be satisfied with nothing less than steam. At Fort William, the Royal Scotsman is steam-hauled for the 42-mile journey to Mallaig and for the return trip. The absence of her usual ScotRail diesel power means a cold meal and failures with the plumbing, but that's the penalty you pay for authentic nostalgia. And just in case any thoroughgoing 100% railway enthusiasts are wondering, yes, I do know that the great Scottish and Western Railway Company was created only 2 years ago, and that the Royal Scotsman is the train that never was. But who's complaining? This is an experience that sets the pulses racing and rattles the Royal Worcester. Royal Scotsman is all about exclusivity, carrying at most 28 passengers with a dozen staff to look after them. Unlike other luxury trains, and the Orient Express is the one most frequently quoted, this doesn't simply carry you from A to B, but takes its time covering the Highland tracks. It stops each night, so you may sleep undisturbed. There are single as well as double cabins with or without private bathrooms, and what you get is reflected in the price you pay. 1985 was its first year of operation, and the demand for sleeping compartments with private bathrooms, state cabins, was so great that this year a new type of cabin has been added, the luxury twin. It cost around £1 million to refurbish the old carriages to create this train that never was, and the people behind the venture are well aware that the United States and Canada is where their passengers are most likely to come from. This was certainly true on the trip we took. Most of our fellow travellers on this journey into the past were the kind of Americans for whom Europe is familiar ground, the kind who casually mention Claridge's and Concorde when speaking of previous visits. A pity the weather couldn't have been better, but you don't go to Scotland merely for the sun. And in any case, the Royal Scotsman insulates her passengers from the elements in a cocoon of luxury. The success of a venture like this depends entirely on the quality of service that's provided. The staff on the train were all young and enthusiastic, but more important, they'd learned their craft well. They were professionals. The two chefs used every inch of the tiny kitchen, just 10 feet by 6, to prepare absolutely first-class meals. It's amazing how they manage it, because the food on board is as good as any you'd get from the huge kitchens of a luxury hotel or restaurant. The dining car claims the distinction of being the oldest in the world to be still in service, having been built in 1891. During the 1914-18 war, it was requisitioned by the army and used as part of Earl Haig's mobile headquarters in France. I hope the casualty figures didn't spoil his appetite. Now a dozen passengers dine here at tables for 2. Everything's included in the price, from full Scottish breakfasts to 5-course dinners, by way of huge buffet lunches and afternoon tea. Wine with meals and all other drinks are included as well, and though I'm no expert, those who are tell me those wines are of the finest quality. The claret at dinner, for example, would have cost at least £20 a bottle elsewhere, and it kept coming. Meals are also served in the family saloon car, which was built in 1912 and is the only carriage not to have a painted livery. Inside and out it is highly varnished teak, just the setting for a family to dine in style, as this one chose to do. There's no denying that this is a very expensive way of capturing the past on holiday, but the Royal Scotsman is like all other luxury trains around the world. If you're going to travel on her, you have to do it in style.
But now let's see what you have to pay for that style on the Royal Scotsman. The shortest trip covers 4 days with 3 nights on board, and the price is £950. That includes all meals, at least 3 a day, all the wine, champagne and other drinks, as well as the sightseeing tours. Now, you could go over the same tracks on a British Rail Freedom of Scotland ticket for £38, but not in the same style and luxury, one has to admit. The Royal Scotsman brochures from your travel agent.